Hey guys, welcome to the next tutorial of ethical hacking and penetration testing via Kali Linux. So in the previous tutorials, we took a look as to how we can go ahead and what are different types of attack, what are the different layers of attack, and how people normally go ahead and DDoS a particular computer or a system or a network. So in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you about how we can go ahead and identify the DDoS attacks and prevent ourselves from them. And yes, a DDoS attack is not only done on a Wi-Fi, on a wireless network, not exactly wireless. The proper term would be that DDoS attacks are not only done over the internet through on a wired connection or on a website only. It's also done on a computer or Wi-Fi network to go ahead and crash the Wi-Fi network and let it reboot again, so that the password may get disrupted and the person will then have access to the network. So if you run your own servers, then you need to be able to identify when you are under attack. That's because the sooner you can establish that problems with your website DDoS attack, the sooner you can try to do something about it. To be in a position to do this, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the typical inbound traffic profile. That means you need to know from where exactly the traffic is coming in. Is it the common way from where always the traffic comes in, or is it coming on the same port from where you normally use which you normally use it? Let's say, for example, you don't always need to go ahead and use the same port like 120 or 140 or 150, whichever you're using. You can use any normal number of port like such as 2137 or any random number. Never use the same numbers for the port such as 2222 or 3333, because it's quite easy for the attackers to guess that and actually go ahead and attack you. So the more you know about what your normal traffic looks like, the easier it is to spot on whether it's an attack or it's just a normal profile trying to access some random stuff. So most DDoS attacks start as sharp spikes in traffic, and helps to be able to tell the difference between a sudden surge of legitimate visitors and the start of a DDoS attack. So, and it's also a good idea to nominate a DDoS leader in your company who is responsible for acting that in case you are under attack. And there should always be over-provisioned bandwidth with your company. It generally makes sense to have more bandwidth available to your web server than you ever think you are likely to need. That way you can accommodate sudden and unexpected surges in the traffic that could be a result of an advertising campaign or any random stuff. And a special offer or even a mention of your company in the media would suffice that. Even if you over-provision the traffic by 100%, or let's say by 500%, let's say you need approximately of 10 GB per month, but you go ahead and get an over-provision of approximately 50 GB every month. That likely won't stop a DDoS attack, but it may give you a few extra minutes to act before your resources are overwhelmed. So you need to make sure that you already have a backup of something in case something goes wrong on your website, or someone is actually trying to DDoS or hack into your website. And you need to make sure that they also work offline, not just online, or they have some kind of internet speciality that even if a system goes offline, you will still be able to work offline even without that specific web page, so that it does not harness your productivity. There are few technical measures that can be taken to go ahead and run from that attack actually, especially in the first few minutes. And some of these are quite simple. For example, you can rate limit your router to prevent your web server being overwhelmed, and filters to tell you whether your router to drop the packets from obvious source of attack or time out them of open connections more aggressively. You can also drop spoofed or malformed packages which are set lower, such as SYN, ICMP, and UDP flood drop thresholds. But the truth is that while these steps have been effective in the past, DDoS attacks are now usually too large for these measures to have any significant effect. Again, the most you can hope for is they will buy a little time as the attack ramps up. And finally, you can go ahead and always call your ISP or the hosting provider. And the next step is to go ahead and call your ISP provider or host provider if you do not host your own web server. Tell them that you are under attack and ask for help. Keep emergency contacts for your ISP or hosting provider readily available so that you can use this very quickly. Depending on the strength of attack, the ISP or the hoster may already have detected it, or they may themselves start to be overwhelmed by the attack as well. In case the person is actually quite strong who is actually doing the DDoS attack, is attacking you as well as the ISP provider also. So you stand a better chance of withstanding the DDoS attack if your web server is located in a hosting center rather than if you run it yourself. That's because its data center will likely have fair high capacity bandwidth links and higher capacity routers than your company has itself. And its staff will probably have more experience dealing with the attacks. Having your web server located with a hoster will also keep DDoS traffic aimed at your web server off the corporate LAN. So at least that part of your business, including email and possibly voice over IP addresses via IP services, should operate normally during an attack as well. And if attack is large enough, the first thing a hosting company or ISP is likely to do is null route your traffic, which results in packets destined for your web server being dropped before they arrive. And it can be very costly for a hosting company to allow a DDoS attack onto their network because it consumes a lot of bandwidth and it can affect other consumers. So the first thing we might say is it's a black hole for a while. It is a most famous term used by Liam and Tignap, network operating engineers at Pier 1 Hosting. And there's also a managing director of ISP and hosting, that is Tim Pat Duffy Service Providers, agrees that the first thing that we need to do when we see a customer under attack is log on to our routers and stop the traffic getting onto our network. He says, because that takes about 2 minutes to propagate globally using border gateway protocol, and then the traffic falls off. So if that was the end of the story, then the DDoS attack would be successful. To get the website back online, your ISP or hosting company may direct your traffic or divert your traffic to a scrubber when the malicious packets can be removed before the legitimate ones are sent to on your web browser. So we use our experience and various tools to understand how the traffic to our website has changed from what it was receiving before, and to identify the malicious packets. And there's also a famous quote said by the guy at Pier 1 that has it has the capacity to take in, scrub and send on very high levels of packets of traffic, as much as 20 Gbps. But with the levels of traffic comparable to those experienced by spammers, even the scrubbing effort would likely be overwhelmed. So do have a DDoS plan or prevention plan in place with your ISP or a hoster, so that it can be prevent or begin mitigation or divert your traffic into a mitigation specialist with the minimum delivery delay. And lastly, we have our own legal use of DDoS attack. The government uses DDoS attack to go ahead and target another companies or another, not actually companies, other countries' server to go ahead and gather information, or being a national spy agency or something. And it's also used to go ahead and stress testing to see whether how much capacity your server has before it goes down, or how much can it take before it actually shuts down and crashes the whole thing. It's also used to know exactly whether the company, whether the website or the server can withstand such amount of traffic, or even after traffic, if they are somehow able to restore, what are the ways that they can go and restore, and how much can they actually protect the system after it has been restored, whether the firewall is down after the DDoS attack, or it can go ahead and lead to some kind of privacy problem, because if the website is down and the people can easily get access into that, then anyone can go ahead and distribute or leak any kind of data that you have in the system. That is why. So these are the different types of attacks that can be done, and these are different ways that can be used to go ahead and stop or use a DDoS attack for your own purposes. And that is it for this tutorial, and that would be end for the PowerPoint presentation for these tutorials. And the next tutorial, I'll be teaching you more about actually doing a DDoS attack in a Windows 7 or a Windows 2008 server, and I'll be showing you multiple ways as to how we can go ahead and do that, and we'll be looking at that in the next tutorial.